I still remember the way the fluorescent lights flickered above my head that morning. I had walked into the office, coffee in hand, feeling that weird combination of nerves and pride. Nerves because today was the day I would hand over everything I knew to the new guy, the one they said was brought in to support me. Pride because after months of slogging through endless reports, late nights, and picking up everyone else's slack, they finally saw me as someone worth training others. That meant I was important, right? That meant I had a future here. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The office had that sterile corporate smell, a blend of burnt coffee, printer ink, and overused air conditioning. It didn't bother me anymore. It was my second home. I knew where every shortcut was, how to fix the jammed copier without calling it, and how to butter up the grumpiest manager just enough to get what I needed. You don't survive 3 years in a mid-tier marketing company without learning a few survival tricks. Name was Jake, fresh out of college, all bright-eyed and optimistic, wearing a suit that looked one size too big. I didn't mind him, really. He was polite, eager to learn, and didn't seem like the type to think he knew better than me. I liked him more than most of the new hires I'd seen come and go. He listened carefully as I walked him through client databases, showed him how to track campaign performance, explained which clients needed gentle handling and which ones appreciated blunt honesty. I even shared some of my own secret templates, the ones I'd built over years to make my job easier. He was so grateful, thanking me over and over again. It made me feel good, like maybe for once all the effort I had put in wasn't invisible. Around noon, my manager, Lillian, swung by my desk, her thin lips stretched into a tight smile as she leaned against the cubicle wall. "Can you pop into a quick meeting with HR after lunch?" she asked, her voice all sugary sweet. "Just a formality." A formality, that word stuck in my head like a splinter, but I didn't question it. Why would I? I had been busting my ass for years. I'd picked up extra shifts when people called in sick, stayed late when deadlines crept up, even canceled a weekend getaway once to finish a last-minute project. In my mind, I was untouchable. After lunch, I made my way to the HR office. I remember feeling a little annoyed, honestly. I had a ton to still show Jake, and this quick meeting felt like a waste of time. I figured it would be some boring update about new company policies or maybe a reminder to complete an online training course. I even made a mental note to keep it short so I could get back to helping him. The HR room was cold, not just air conditioning cold, but cold in the way that you just know something bad is about to happen. The HR manager, Kim, gave me a polite nod. Lillian was already there, sitting stiffly in one of the chairs with a manila folder on her lap. "Please sit," Kim said, her voice way too soft. It made my stomach clench. I sat, my heart started hammering, but I kept my face neutral. Kim cleared her throat, opened the folder, and started reading from a piece of paper like she didn't even want to meet my eyes. "Due to ongoing restructuring and budgetary changes, we regret to inform you that your position is being eliminated effective immediately." I blinked once, twice. Surely I misheard her. "Sorry," I croaked out, my mouth suddenly dry. Lillian jumped in, her voice bright, almost rehearsed. "You've been a valued member of the team, and we truly appreciate your contributions. Unfortunately, with the changing needs of the business, we had to make some tough decisions." I sat there stunned, watching their mouths move but barely hearing the words. "Severance package, final paycheck, return your badge, it will disable your email." I could barely process any of it. I had just spent the morning training my replacement. And now I was disposable, like an old phone traded in for a newer model. I didn't cry, not there. I nodded numb, signed the papers they shoved at me with shaking hands, and gathered my things. I walked past Jake's desk where he sat scrolling through the onboarding manual I'd helped him set up. He gave me a little wave. He had no idea. No one really looked at me as I walked out. No applause, no goodbyes, no "thank you for your service." It was like I never existed. As I stepped outside into the brutal afternoon sun, the shock wore off just enough for the anger to set in. They used me. They let me pour every bit of knowledge into someone else, milked me dry, and kicked me to the curb. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, breathing hard. That was when a dangerous, thrilling thought crept into my mind, a thought that made my heart beat faster, not with fear but with fire. They thought they had seen the last of me. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. I didn't even realize how long I had been sitting in the parking lot until the sun started sinking low in the sky, throwing long shadows across the asphalt. My coffee had gone cold. My phone buzzed a few times, texts from my sister, a couple of spam emails, but I ignored them all. I was stuck in my head, replaying the morning over and over like a broken record. Every smile they gave me, every fake compliment, every empty promise that your hard work will pay off one day, it was all scripted. None of it had meant a damn thing. Eventually, when my legs were stiff and my head was pounding, I started the car and drove home. The radio stayed off. I didn't want noise. I didn't want distraction. I wanted to sit in the heaviness of it. It felt like if I ignored it, if I tried to laugh it off or call a friend and rant, it would cheapen the hurt. I needed to feel it, to let it soak in, as awful as that was. When I pulled into my driveway, the reality hit me even harder. I had no backup plan. I had always been too busy working to even think about what I'd do if it all went sideways. No side hustle, no secret job offers, nothing. The house looked different as I walked up to it, smaller somehow, less like a symbol of success and more like a crushing weight. Mortgage, bills, food, gas, all of it depended on the paycheck I no longer had. For a second, panic clawed at my throat so hard I thought I was going to be sick right there on the front lawn. Inside, I dropped my bag by the door and slumped onto the couch without even taking my shoes off. I stared up at the ceiling, feeling completely hollow. That night I didn't sleep. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun lazily above me. Every creak of the house sounded like a judgment. Every gust of wind outside felt like the world mocking me. I didn't even cry. I felt like I was beyond crying, like I had been gutted and left empty. Morning came, not that I was ready for it. I pulled the curtains closed tighter, trying to block out the sunlight that felt too bright, too accusing. And then the questions started eating at me. What was wrong with me? Why was I good enough? How could they replace me so easily? Was I just stupid for trusting them? For the first couple of days, I did nothing but exist. I ignored texts from friends. I didn't answer when my mom called. I sat in the same clothes, scrolling mindlessly through social media, watching everyone else live their lives while mine felt like it had crumbled into dust. Every promotion announcement, post, every exciting career move, update made my chest tighten a little more. The world moved on without me, and it hurt like hell. But somewhere in that mess of shame and anger, a tiny, stubborn ember started to glow. I think it started when I saw a post from a former coworker, someone I knew had gotten ahead not because they were talented, but because they knew how to kiss up to the right people. There they were, posting about their exciting new leadership opportunity, looking smug as hell. I sat there seething, and the thought hit me, I didn't fail because I wasn't good enough. I failed because I trusted people who didn't deserve it. And that changed everything. The anger, the betrayal, the bitterness, it all boiled together into something sharper, something more dangerous. I realized that I had two choices: stay broken and let them win, or get up and do something that would make them wish they had never let me go. It wasn't going to be about revenge, not exactly. It was going to be about proving to myself, and maybe to them, too, that I was worth more than how they treated me. I didn't have much money saved up, not enough for anything crazy, but I had time now and skills, and a fire in my chest that refused to die. For the first time in days, I sat up straight. I grabbed a notebook and started scribbling down ideas, wild ideas, impossible ideas, anything that came to mind. I didn't know exactly what my plan was yet. But I knew this. I wasn't going to beg for another job just to end up in the same place again. I was going to build something of my own. Something they couldn't take away from me. Rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And this time I wasn't going to play nice. The notebook in front of me was a mess, scribbled ideas, half-formed plans, doodles in the margins when my mind drifted. I had spent the better part of 3 days bouncing between wild dreams and brutal reality checks. Start a business, become a consultant, freelance, start a blog, sell everything and move away. I even jotted down open a food truck at one point, and I can't cook anything more complicated than microwave mac and cheese. It all sounded thrilling at first. When you're fueled by anger and adrenaline, every crazy idea feels like a ticket out of the life that broke you. But once the excitement cooled and the real-world math kicked in, how much money I had, how much I needed just to keep the lights on, the fear crept back. You don't just wake up one day and create a new life from scratch, not without some serious risks. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom: you stop being afraid of falling. Because there's nowhere left to fall. Late one night, after hours of staring at my cracked laptop screen and drinking enough coffee to make my hands tremble, a real plan started to form. Not a fantasy, not a dream, a plan. I realized that what I knew best, the thing I had been doing for years without even thinking about it, was marketing. More specifically, digital marketing, managing social media, creating ad campaigns, understanding how to make small businesses look bigger and more trustworthy online. At the company, I was the one people came to when they didn't know how to sell an idea. I knew how to build campaigns, how to write ads that didn't sound like ads, how to turn a boring client into a story people wanted to hear. I didn't just work for a company, I built companies from behind the scenes. And yet somehow I had never seen that skill as something I could own. Until now. Freelance digital marketing, it wasn't glamorous, it wasn't going to make me a millionaire overnight, but it was something I could start with just a laptop, a phone, and the experience already burned into my brain from years of corporate grind. I didn't need to build a huge agency, not yet. All I needed was one client, just one small business owner desperate for help, someone too busy to handle their website, their ads, their customer emails. Someone like the clients I used to deal with every day at my old job. If I could land one, I could survive. If I could land 2 or 3, I could breathe again. I stayed up all night researching. I looked at freelance marketplaces, local business directories, small businesses on Instagram that had 3 followers and outdated logos. I wasn't delusional, I knew it was going to be a grind, I knew nobody was going to hand me anything, but for the first time in days, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt hungry. The next morning I showered, shaved, and put on a clean shirt for the first time since losing my job. It felt ceremonial, like I was stepping out of the wreckage and into something new. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened a fresh Word document, and started writing a pitch. Simple, direct, honest. No fake buzzwords, no corporate nonsense. Just me offering what I could do, clearly and confidently. By noon I had a basic portfolio website up. It wasn't anything fancy, a few pages explaining my services, a section about me, some examples of old campaigns I had managed. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And sometimes real is better than perfect. I sent out the first 5 cold emails that afternoon, carefully crafted to businesses I thought I could actually help. I expected nothing, I was prepared for silence. And honestly, most of them did ignore me. But the 5th email, the 5th one, changed everything. It was a local coffee shop, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and a hand-painted chalkboard menu. The owner, Claire, replied within 2 hours. "Hey, I could really use some help with marketing. Can you meet tomorrow to chat?" I stared at the email for a full minute before it sank in. My heart started pounding. This was it, my first shot, my first yes. Not from a boss, not from some corporate ladder I had to climb. From me reaching out, building something on my own terms. I didn't know it at the time, but that one email was going to lead to things I couldn't even imagine yet. Opportunities, disasters, betrayals, victories. It was the first domino in a line I was about to knock over. I hit reply with shaking fingers and typed back. Absolutely, I'll be there. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, I woke up 2 hours before my alarm. Wide awake, heart racing, mind spinning. It felt like the first day of school, or maybe like standing at the top of a cliff before you jump. A part of me wanted to pull the covers back over my head, to let fear make the decisions for me like it had so many times before. But a louder part of me, the part that had been forged from every lie, every dismissal, every fake smile back at the office, shoved me out of bed. I wasn't going to let fear win, not this time. I pulled on my best professional casual outfit, a decent pair of jeans, a blazer that hadn't seen the light of day in months, and clean sneakers. I didn't have the money to buy some fancy new wardrobe to look like a polished consultant, but I figured if I showed up looking sharp and acted like I belonged, it would be enough. The coffee shop, Claire's place, was tucked between a laundromat and a thrift store, the kind of neighborhood spot where people actually knew each other's names. As I pushed open the door, a little brass bell jingled overhead and the smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon hit me like a wave. For a second I just stood there, soaking it in. It felt different. It felt real. Behind the counter, a woman waved at me. Early 40s, messy bun, flour smudged on her apron. She had the kind of tired, determined eyes that told 1,000 stories before she even said a word. "You must be the marketing guy," she said, grinning. "I'm Claire." I smiled back, hoping I looked more confident than I felt. "That's me, thanks for meeting with me." We sat down at a corner table and Claire got right to it. No corporate small talk, no fake excitement, just the truth. She told me how she had opened Claire's place 5 years ago with money scraped together from savings and family loans, how COVID almost killed the business, how online ordering had taken off for the big chains, but she had no clue how to keep up. Her website was outdated. Her Instagram had about 50 followers, most of them family. She was barely hanging on, not because her coffee wasn't good, it was incredible, but because no one knew she existed unless they happened to drive by. "I don't need fancy ads," she said. "I need people to remember me. I need butts in seats, you know." I knew, God, I knew. As she talked, something clicked inside me. I wasn't just trying to land a client. I wasn't trying to sell her. I was here to help. And that felt good. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't launch into a polished sales pitch. I just talked honestly. I explained how we could revamp her Instagram with real photos of her coffee and customers, how we could run small, hyperlocal Facebook ads for cheap, just targeting people within a few miles, how we could create loyalty cards and email offers for regulars. I even threw out the idea of hosting little open mic nights or poetry readings to bring new people in. Claire listened, nodding, tapping her chipped coffee mug on the table as she thought. When I finished, there was a long pause, the kind that makes you feel like your whole life is dangling in the air. Finally, she smiled. "You get it," she said. "I don't have a lot to spend right now, but if you're willing to work with me, you're hired." I must have looked like a deer caught in headlights because she laughed. "Relax, kid, you're the first person who's talked to me like I'm a human and not a spreadsheet." I shook her hand, and just like that, I had my first client. It wasn't a huge contract, a few $100 a month to start, barely enough to cover groceries. But it wasn't about the money. It was about control. It was about taking back the part of myself they tried to crush when they threw me away like garbage. As I walked out of Claire's place, I felt taller, stronger, like a man who had crawled out of a grave and was learning to walk again. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Claire's business was small, money would be tight, mistakes would happen. But as I stood in the parking lot, feeling the late morning sun on my face, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just a rebound. This was a beginning. I was building something real. Brick by brick. Client by client. Story by story. And if the people who fired me ever happened to hear about what I was doing, maybe they'd realize they didn't just fire an employee. They created a storm. The first few weeks working with Claire were a blur, the kind of busy where you're exhausted but alive at the same time. I spent hours photographing her best lattes, catching the foam swirling just right, the sunlight hitting the pastries in a way that made them look like art. I helped her run small promotions like buy one get one free Tuesdays and made simple, heartfelt posts that didn't scream corporate advertising, just honest, personal stuff that made people feel like this was their coffee shop, their little hidden gem. And it worked, not overnight, not in some Hollywood-style miracle, but bit by bit we started to see it. One day, there would be 2 new customers who said they saw the post about the cinnamon rolls. The next, a group of college students would come in for open mic night and promise to bring friends. Each tiny success felt like a shot of pure adrenaline straight into my veins. Claire was thrilled. She started calling me her secret weapon, joking that she was going to chain me to the espresso machine so I'd never leave. I laughed, but deep down, I clung to that praise like a lifeline. After months of feeling invisible, discarded, it felt good to matter again. Word started to spread, not just about Claire's place, about me. It happened slow at first. Claire's cousin owned a boutique a few blocks away and needed help. A guy who played guitar at open mic night ran a struggling gym and wanted advice. A woman who ran a pet grooming business messaged me out of the blue, saying Claire had mentioned some marketing wizard. One by one, these tiny, struggling businesses started reaching out. No fancy contracts, no boardrooms, just real people trying to survive in a world built to crush the little guys. I said yes to almost everything. I didn't even think about whether I was charging enough or protecting my time. I just worked. Because for the first time in a long time, the work felt like mine. I wasn't some cog in a machine anymore. I was the machine. It wasn't glamorous. I pulled 12-hour days at my kitchen table, eating cold pizza with one hand while editing Instagram reels with the other. My laptop wheezed like it might give up and die at any second. I barely left the house except to meet clients or grab coffee, but I didn't care. Every late night, every skipped meal, every panic attack about money, it all felt worth it because it was for me. And the best part, I started making more in a month than I ever had working full-time in the corporate grind. It wasn't millions. It wasn't even six figures. But it was enough to pay the mortgage, buy groceries without counting pennies, even put a little aside for once. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was building a life. And there's always a but, isn't there? The success came with something else too. A slow, creeping sense of fear. What if it all collapsed? What if the clients dried up? What if one bad review, one missed email, one burnt-out week destroyed everything? When you build something yourself, every crack feels personal, every mistake feels fatal. And as much as I loved the freedom, the pride, the thrill of being my own boss, I also felt the weight of it pressing harder every day. One night, maybe 2 months into this new life, I sat on my tiny balcony with a cheap beer and looked out at the city lights. I should have been proud, I should have been celebrating. But instead, I felt something darker slithering around inside my head, imposter syndrome. I wasn't a real business owner, I wasn't some marketing guru. I was just a guy who got fired and was faking it until it all fell apart. And deep down, a part of me still wanted to march back into that old office, throw my new success in their faces, and demand they see me now. To scream, "Look what you threw away." But another part of me, the smarter part, knew that wasn't the goal anymore. This wasn't about them. This was about me. I didn't need their validation. I needed to be able to look myself in the mirror and know I didn't quit when it got hard. That I chose myself. That when everything burned down, I built something beautiful from the ashes. Still, the fear gnawed at me. And I was about to learn that success wasn't the end of the story. Sometimes when you climb out of one hole, you find another one waiting for you, deeper, darker, and way more dangerous. And I was about to fall face first into it. It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. It was a Wednesday afternoon, the kind where the sunlight slants through the windows just right and everything feels too peaceful to trust. I was halfway through editing some graphics for a new client, a bakery that needed help with their grand opening, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail. I hated cold calls, hated that gut-sinking feeling that maybe it was bad news lurking behind the ring. But something told me to answer. "Hello," I said, still distracted, still dragging text boxes across my laptop screen. The voice on the other end was warm, too warm. "Hey there, is this the marketing consultant who's been doing such amazing work for Claire's place?" I sat up straighter, instantly suspicious. No one buttered you up like that unless they wanted something. "Yes, that's me, who's calling?" "My name's Mark," he said, smooth as butter. "I work with a local agency. We've been watching your work from a distance and frankly, we're impressed, really impressed. We think you'd be a perfect fit for some of the expansion we're planning." I leaned back in my chair, heart thudding in my chest. An agency watching me. It was everything I thought I wanted, wasn't it? Recognition, opportunities, maybe even a team to back me up instead of doing everything alone. Mark kept talking, spinning visions of a bigger stage, more clients, bigger projects, better money. All I had to do was come meet with him and his team, discuss how we could collaborate. He made it sound so casual, so easy. And God help me, I wanted to believe him. I showed up to their office 2 days later. It was shiny, modern, industrial chic with polished concrete floors, neon signs, and an espresso machine that probably cost more than my car. Mark met me at the door, late 30s, sharp suit, perfect hair, a handshake like he was trying to crush my fingers into powder. He introduced me around, smiling like a proud parent, talking about how hungry talent was the future of marketing, how they loved entrepreneurial spirits like mine. They asked me about my process, my clients, my wins. They nodded and took notes and laughed in all the right places. It felt good. It felt too good. After an hour, they made their pitch. They wanted me to join their team as an independent consultant. I'd keep my freedom, technically, but I'd funnel my current and future clients through their agency at a small fee for their management services. They'd handle billing, contracts, all the boring admin stuff. I'd just focus on the work. It sounded tempting. Too tempting. I told them I needed a few days to think. They smiled too wide and said, of course, take all the time I needed. But something in my gut twisted the second I walked out of there. Something didn't add up. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying the meeting in my head. The way they had been so eager to get names of my clients. The way Mark had casually mentioned streamlining communication, hinting that once I signed on, I wouldn't be allowed to talk to my clients directly anymore. The way everything sounded just a little too rehearsed. The next morning I called Claire. I told her everything. She went quiet on the other end of the line, and then she said the words that made my blood run cold. They already called me yesterday. Said they could offer better marketing services at half the price if I dropped you. My stomach flipped. They hadn't been scouting me because they respected me. They had been targeting me. They wanted my clients. They wanted to rip away everything I had built with my bare hands and slap their agency sticker over it. I hung up the phone and just sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. The anger didn't come right away. First came the betrayal. The gut-deep ache of realizing that the moment you start to climb, the vultures start circling. These people weren't impressed by me. They saw me as an easy mark. A naive freelancer they could buy out, bleed dry, and discard the moment I wasn't profitable anymore. Just like before. I felt stupid, so stupid. Hadn't I learned anything from getting fired? Hadn't I promised myself I would never trust people like that again? But sitting there hurting and furious, I also felt something else rising up inside me, something sharp and clear. They weren't going to take what I had built. Not without a fight. If they wanted war, I was ready. Because this time, I wasn't a scared employee sitting in a sterile HR office. I was a business owner. I was my own army. And I was about to show them exactly how big a mistake they had made. After I hung up with Claire, I sat there for a long time, feeling the heat rise up my spine, not just anger anymore, resolve. I wasn't going to let these suits steal from me. Not this time. Not after everything I had clawed back. So I did what I knew best. I got strategic. First, I called every single one of my clients personally. No emails, no vague messages. Face-to-face, voice-to-voice honesty. I told them everything. How an agency had tried to swoop in behind my back. How they promised cheaper services by cutting me out of the work I had personally built for them. I didn't beg, I didn't whine. I simply laid it out and told them the truth. If you want to stay with me, great. If you want to leave, no hard feelings. I just want you to know the kind of people you'd be dealing with. And you know what happened. Not a single client left. Not one. Claire was furious on my behalf. She even started telling her customers about what had happened, spinning it into a kind of underdog story, support the little guy who's fighting to stay independent. Word spread fast in our little corner of the city. People love rooting for the underdog. Within a week, I wasn't just surviving the fallout, I was thriving. New clients started reaching out. Local businesses who had heard the story and wanted to work with someone they could actually trust. Small coffee shops, boutique stores, hair salons, bakeries, real people who didn't want to be another number in some soulless agency's portfolio. I didn't have to lift a finger to advertise. My integrity became my marketing. My loyalty became my selling point. Meanwhile, that agency, the one that thought they could bully me into handing over everything. They didn't get a single client off me. Not one. I heard later from a friend who used to work there that they had already drafted up plans, assuming they'd get my accounts. They had promised bonuses to some of their junior staff based on the money they were about to bring in. When it all collapsed, it was chaos. Meetings, finger-pointing, people quitting. Mark, the slick guy who called me, word was he got moved to a different department, corporate speak for you're done here. I didn't even celebrate, not the way you might think. No champagne popping, no gloating victory lap. I just smiled to myself, opened my laptop, and got back to work. Because that's what they never understood. I wasn't building something just to show them up. I was building something for me. And here's the funny part. The best revenge wasn't stealing clients back or tanking their reputation or watching their plans blow up. The best revenge was winning on my own terms. Without stooping to their level. Without selling out or giving in. A few months later, I hit my first $10,000 month. Not from one huge client, but from a patchwork of tiny businesses who trusted me, respected me, and stuck with me because I treated them like people, not paychecks. I upgraded my equipment. I took a real vacation for the first time in years. I even started mentoring a few other freelancers who were just starting out, teaching them how to spot the traps, how to bet on themselves when nobody else would. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about the day they fired me. How small I felt walking out of that building, cardboard box in my arms, humiliated, lost. And I wish I could go back to that version of me. Just for a second. I'd lean down, look him straight in the eyes, and say, "Good, let it hurt. Let it break you. Because what comes next will be the best damn thing you've ever built."